Christos anesti. You remember from last week? Alithos anesti is the response. Let's try it. Christos anesti. Alithos anesti. Christos anesti. Alithos anesti. Great. My family in Dallas is celebrating Orthodox Easter this weekend with a huge lamb roast. I'm really sorry to miss it. I would have gone to the long Easter vigil at the Orthodox Church with my son. I grew up going to the Easter vigil in the Greek Orthodox Church with my grandmother. And what I remember most about that is the light. There were so many candles, tons of them. And everyone stood. I can't remember anybody ever sitting, but we were standing and we had candles. And there were just tons of people, tons of light. And I remember lots of chanting and swaying because it seems like when you chant, you have to sway. And a big part of Greek Easter is the eggs. And they're red eggs. The only color of eggs that are appropriate for Greek Easter. Unless you have a few of your neighbors coming in and they bring pink, blue, green, yellow. And a splash of color does wonders. In Greek households, we don't dye the eggs. We crack them. End to end, tip to tip. Unless you get a bit wild and crack them over your brother's head like my brothers used to do. And there's always a winner. No matter how many eggs you're cracking, how many people are there, there's always a winner. Someone who has an egg that has not cracked, at least on one side. Sometimes somebody has a whole egg. Did you know that when asked by his disciples in what meaningful way we could possibly honor his suffering, death, and resurrection, Jesus answered, eggs. And I have the meme to show you that. And we have done so. We have honored Jesus by having all kinds of eggs. Chocolate ones, yellow ones, green ones, blue ones, polka dot ones. Chocolate? No peanut butter eggs here, though. Jesus also said, seek and ye shall find. The other day, I was downstairs in the library here, and I was looking for a book. And guess what I found? I found eggs. 5 of them. Did you know that today is Holy Laughter Sunday? There is an old tradition called Rissus Paschalis, which means God's joke, the Easter laugh. In the 15th century in Bavaria, funny stories would be told in church on Sunday. On Easter Day, then people would gather together after the Mass and tell jokes to one another. Early Orthodox churches gathered on the Monday after Easter to tell stories, jokes, and anecdotes. This was a time of celebrating the big joke that God pulled on Satan. Today, churches celebrate it the Sunday after Easter. It's known as Holy Hilarity Sunday, Holy Humor Sunday, Bright Sunday, and Holy Laughter Sunday. By whatever name it goes by, we celebrate Rissus Paschalis, Easter laughter. As we heard in John's Gospel last week, your sorrow will turn into joy. Both Mary and now the disciples experienced this joy when they experienced Jesus in their midst. So what is Easter? 3 guys just died and are at the pearly gates of heaven. St. Peter tells them that they can enter the gates if they can answer one simple question. So St. Peter asks the first man, "What is Easter?" And he replies, "Oh, that's easy. It's the holiday in November when everybody gets together, eats turkey, and is thankful." "Wrong," replies St. Peter, and proceeds to ask the second man the same question, "What is Easter?" The second man replies, "Nope, Easter's the holiday in December when we put up a tree, exchange presents, and celebrate the birth of Jesus." St. Peter looks at the second man, shakes his head in disgust, looks at the third man and says, "What is Easter?" The third man smiles and looks St. Peter in the eye. "I know what Easter is. It's the Christian holiday that coincides with the Jewish celebration of Passover. Jesus and his disciples were eating at the Last Supper, and he was later deceived and turned over to the Romans by one of his disciples. The Romans took him to be crucified and was stabbed in the side, made him wear a crown of thorns, and he was hung on a cross. He was buried in a nearby cave, which was sealed off by a large boulder. Every year, the boulder is moved aside so that Jesus can come out. And if he sees his shadow, there will be 6 more weeks of winter." And like Sarah, when she heard she would conceive a child in her old age, people who share an Easter faith can say, "God has made me laugh. Everyone who hears will laugh with me." And that is from Genesis. The disciples must have laughed and told lots of stories after they received the breath of God, the Holy Spirit. Mary, the disciples, Thomas, all needed to see and to experience Jesus in order to believe that he was indeed among them. God laughs, and God laughs with us. And I do suppose that at times God may be laughing at us, much the way we laugh at ourselves. 3 passengers boarded a small airplane, a minister, a Boy Scout, and a senator. The flight was going along real smoothly when all of a sudden the pilot ran to the back and said, "I've got some bad news. This plane is going down and there's nothing I can do. And what's worse, there are only 3 parachutes on this plane." He said, "I've got a wife and 4 children. My family needs me," and he grabbed a parachute and jumped. The senator pushed past the minister and the little boy and said, "I am the smartest senator in the world. I'm going places. This country needs me." And he grabbed one and jumped. The minister looked at the little boy and said, "Son, I dedicated my life to Christ many times, many years ago, and I've lived a good life. Your life is just beginning. Go ahead, take that last parachute and jump." And the little boy looked up at the minister and said, "Minister, that's not the last parachute. The smartest senator in the world jumped with my backpack." Okay. A newly appointed young pastor was contacted by the local funeral director to hold a graveside service at a small country cemetery. There was to be no funeral, just the committal, because the deceased had no family or friends left. The young pastor started early to the cemetery, but soon lost his way. And after making several strong turns, he finally arrived a half hour late. The hearse was nowhere in sight, and the workmen were relaxing under a nearby tree, eating their lunch. The pastor went to the open grave and found that the vault lid was already in place. He took out his prayer book and read the service. As he returned to his car, he overheard one of the workmen say, "Maybe we better tell him that that was the septic tank." My preacher friend put sanitary hot air hand dryers in the restrooms at his church, and after 2 weeks took them out. I asked him why, and he confessed that they worked fine, but when he went in there, he saw a sign that read, "For a sample of this week's sermon, push the button." When I was ordained, my bishop dared me to do Holy Laughter Sunday many, many, many years ago. And I try to do it once in every church I'm at. Why can't dinosaurs clap their hands? Because they're extinct. I gave my handyman a to-do list, but he only did jobs 1, 3, and 5. Turns out he only does odd jobs. Why do people who live in Greece hate waking up at dawn? Because dawn is tough on Greece. Oh. A man is stumbling through the woods totally drunk when he comes upon a preacher baptizing people in the river. He proceeds to walk into the water and subsequently bumps into the preacher. The preacher turns around and is almost overcome by the smell of alcohol, whereupon he asks the guy, "Are you ready to find Jesus?" The guy answers, "Yes, I am." So the preacher grabs him and dunks him in the water. He pulls him up and says, "Brother, have you found Jesus?" He replies, "No, I haven't found Jesus." The preacher, shocked at the answer, dunks him into the water again for a little longer this time. He again pulls him out of the water and asks, "Have you found Jesus, my brother?" He again answers, "No, I haven't found Jesus." By this time, the preacher is at his wit's end and dunks the guy in the water again. But this time holds him down for about 30 seconds, and when he begins kicking his arms and legs, he pulls him up. The preacher again asks him, "For the love of God, have you found Jesus?" The guy wipes his eyes, catches his breath, and says to the preacher, "Are you sure this is where he fell in?" The assumption that a sense of humor and a Christian faith are incompatible is totally mistaken. Many of the writers of the great classics of humor have all been deeply religious. Laughter is God's therapy. Let us be thankful that when the gates of heaven swing open, mixed with the celestial music, there is the unmistakable sound of celestial laughter. Joyfulness and gratitude have been described as spiritual practices that are bound to a belief in human connectedness and a power greater than us. Joy has been described as a spiritual way of engaging with the world that's connected to practicing gratitude. We find that when we have a spiritual practice of gratitude, the world looks different, and we learn to live joy. Joy comes to us in moments, ordinary moments. We risk missing out on joy when we get too busy chasing down the extraordinary. Be grateful for what you have. Laugh often. And it has been said that angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. Never forget that the devil fell by force of gravity. He or she who has the faith has the fun. G.K. Chesterton. Got that joy to